All right, we are starting episode 32 of Practical Chrome. Today is, of course, Tuesday, July 29th, 2014, and we do want to thank our sponsors for this show. Of course, we do have, or the show is, I should say, the show is brought to you by, the show is brought to you by The Effective Group. Do you need a fantastic website that not only looks great on mobiles and tablets, but also gets you selling online? Then Effective Group is the company for you. To find out more about Effective Group, view their portfolio, and read about their successes, visit effective-group.com. Also brought to you by Coinbase. Coinbase is an international digital wallet that allows you to securely buy, use, and accept Bitcoin currency. Coinbase is Bitcoin safe and easy. Visit them today through our referral link to help the show. Visit coinbase.practicalchrome.com. Like I said, this is episode 31, all about what we're doing is we're coming in strong after our Croutons and Bitcoin challenge. So what we're going to find out really is what happened, right? So me, Craig, and James, we took on this awesome challenge here at Practical Chrome. Again, Practical Chrome is the show dedicated to everything Chrome, so we had to do this. Being either a vanilla person, which means that you just run Chrome OS straight, or if you're a tinkerer, or if you wanted that extra level. I actually spoke with someone this week who said, I actually bought my Chromebook for that reason, so that I could do Crouton. So, to each their own. And what we did was we took that challenge. We took it up. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And first I'll ask how everybody's doing. Craig Tumbleson, thank you for joining us again. And how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing great, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I will have everyone know that when Craig first came on, he was using his other mic, and it sounded terrible. And now that he's using his nice mic, he sounds fantastic. So welcome aboard, Mr. Tumbleson. Mr. Welbus, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Fantastic, John. How are you?
I'm good. Now, I don't mean to belittle you or me, James, but to be honest, you still sound better than I do, and I don't know how. You do. It just happens every time.
It's
So,
mostly DNA, I think.
what's that?
It's mostly my DNA.
See, there you go. It's probably true. Um, so guys, this week we're looking at the Crouton Challenge. That's what we're going to do. We also do have some news that happened this week. First of all, it's Chromecast's birthday. Happy birthday, Chromecast. You beautiful little dongle, you. Also, there was some free Chromecast going out there. And also some more free stuff, and then also Chrome Beta came out for Android with all the new touches for material design, which was kind of cool. It's been a now. By the way, I don't think I'm gonna have any technical difficulties this week. I don't think. I don't think so, because I was able to, just to let everybody know, those of you who are concerned, and actually Morgan, one of our viewers, actually helped me out a great deal because he heard my woes about my new modem and router combo. Craig already told me not to do that, but I did that. I had the combo going, and it didn't work out very well, as last week is a testament. Um, it was a Motorola, and it's bad. And then when you research it, it has like 1.5 stars from most places because it's just not a good combo. Now, I rebought the Motorola single functional modem, and that is, of course, blazing fast, and it's awesome. And then I had to choose a router. So I did choose a Belkin, and I went actually with James's recommendation. I don't know if I get your exact model, James, but just you're saying that it's been sturdy and solid. Because if you read reviews of routers, it's hit or miss. Either it's a piece of junk, and I don't know whether that's people who don't understand the technology or what, but most time it's like every one of them gets 3 stars pretty much everywhere you go, and someone's talking about having to reboot it every week or whatever. But that's kind of been my week. That's that's how my life's been going. So again, we appreciate everybody for being here. Welcome to Practical Chrome. Let's kind of jump into it. First, we're going to jump into the news, and of course, before we get into the news, we're going to get to our sponsor, and that is of course the Effective Group. And Effective Group has actually been a sponsor of Practical Chrome for some time, and we want to thank them again for sponsoring us. But what is the Effective Group? Right now, the Effective Group is a company that's been around for about 15 years, a little bit more, and they're based out of the UK, and they're a team of people that work to get people online. Right? They make the internet work for you. That's what the effective group is for. If you are a business person or you own a company or you need to get yourself on the web, get a website built, this is the company that you're going to want to turn to because they'll do the SEO management, which means that they'll get you onto Twitter, Facebook, G+, and get your brand on there properly with the right imaging and the right marketing mindset for that particular social media site. Then they'll also build your website for you, work with you on the SEO management, which is search engines, so that way when someone searches for you, whether they're in your area, so that's when you're talking like local on the Google Maps, things like that, they can help you with that. Or if you were an international or throughout the country, they'll help you with that as well. So this is the type of company that you're going to want a one-on-one feel with when you want to get yourself online. And that is, of course, the Effective Group. That's effective-group.com. You're going to want to visit that site to check out their portfolio, read their success stories. It's some really great stuff, and especially when it comes to the responsive design, which has been a big buzzword around lately, especially with material design and stuff coming out. They've been doing that for a while, where if you want to build a site, you build a site and it'll shape to the device that you're on, which is pretty cool. It's the same site, but it just conforms exactly to the device. Whether it's a 7-inch tablet, 10-inch tablet, an awesome 11-inch Chromebook, or a 5-inch phone, it's going to have the same look and feel each time they go to the website. So really cool stuff. Again, thank you for the Effective Group for sponsoring Practical Chrome. Again, that's www.effective-group.com. All right, Craig, how's your week been?
My week's been pretty good, John. How's yours? Besides the router trouble.
Oh, it's been good. It's been good. It's as we watched a couple movies, we've done some stuff, right? But this week in news, Craig, has actually been fairly decent. We've actually been had some some cool things come out. Like for instance, the Google setting up the beta on Chrome for Android. Have you taken a look at it? Have you downloaded the beta? I think you did say you downloaded beta.
The Chrome Beta app is my default browser on my Android device.
And what did you think of when you got the update and you had the new material design?
I would call it a stab at material design.
Ooh.
I don't think it's all the way there yet. There's not a lot of animations, for example, which was a big part of material design. But it's got the flat logo now. It's got a flat look. There's a few animations present that look gorgeous where they are. But overall, it felt really fresh. It did. It felt like a new browser, even though all the underlying functions are the same. So I think there was one feature that actually disappeared, but it was one that very, very few people used, and it was going to be disappearing anyway. So, but yeah, it just felt kind of fresh. It got a nice new design, and I think Joey over at OMG Chrome did a fantastic write-up. He even included a GIF or a GIF showing some of the animation that's now in the default start page. So he did a great job.
He did a great job. I've actually got the setup on the screen if you're watching the live show. And I will have the link in the show notes to the OMG Chrome article. And what he's got on there is on the home screen. What it does is it has an interactive URL bar where when you're first on the home screen, you just see Google, and it looks like all one big sheet, and you can see the search box. And then as you scroll up, the search box becomes the URL bar. It's pretty neat. And Joey did have a great little GIF there showing us how all that worked. He's got a number of different photos in there. James, did you get a chance to check out this beta release and see the moonshine flat logo and the material design inside of the application itself?
Yeah. Chrome Beta is also my default browser on my phone, and I didn't even notice until you brought it up that it had changed. At some point, I noticed that there was not a number inside the little tabs icon anymore, and I just thought that was my phone being weird until you mentioned that it was a new UI. Then I started to notice the little tiny differences, like the HTTPS icon is a little different now. There's no more refresh button. You have to go into the settings, the vertical 3-dot button to refresh the page now, which in my opinion is kind of annoying, but I think they did it to give it a little cleaner look. Yeah, I like Craig said, it's not full material design, so you won't notice a whole lot of differences, but the stuff they did does look nice. The animations are nice. it is kind of a fun little preview of things to come.
Yeah, and I do like it. And again, Joey's got a side-by-side shot on there, so you can see the difference. If you're looking for the beta, you can definitely download that. Joey has a link in the article, but if you just go into the Chrome Web Store, not the Chrome Web Store, that's on Chrome for desktops. If you go into the App Store, the Google App Store, Play Store, whatever you listen, it's been called so many things. I think
The
Craig is right.
marketplace.
The marketplace.
I
Thank
still
you.
call it the marketplace.
Is it called the market? No.
It hasn't been there for like a year.
Was it? Craig's right. There needs to be some convergence here.
Originally, it was the Android Marketplace, and
There
then
you
just
go.
Android Market, and now it's Google Play.
There, see, it's Google Play. Thank you. Okay, so that's what it is. You're okay, right? Thank you. Thank you.
It has never been, and it will never be the App Store. That's
Okay.
Apple.
All right. You're right.
Except for the
right.
Amazon App Store.
Okay. Speaking of that, Practical Chrome is available on iTunes. For those of you that do own an iPhone and have an app store, you can find us on the iTunes podcast thing there. All right, so cool. So I thought that was pretty cool. I did enjoy it. And actually, one of the other benefits of this update, and actually I think this is actually on stable. No, it's still in beta as well. And this was actually really cool because I don't know if you've been through this frustration. And this, there was a ton of G Plus articles that came out. I know I saw one from Ben who was like, woohoo! And it basically, if you've ever had difficulty signing into your Google stuff through the Chrome app on your Android device, you've been through the password type in hell that is that experience. It's been simplified finally, and that is going to also be in the beta. So, and it kind of goes over that. And what I've got a link to is actually the Chrome blog. I haven't experienced it yet because I haven't had to sign into anything yet or sign into Chrome. I don't know. Now, Craig, I don't know if you did or not. Now, and I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag here. The Android L preview that you had, was that any of the areas where you had to do that, or did you have to do that on beta at all and see the new sign-in?
When I switched to the Android L preview port for my Nexus 4, Chrome Beta didn't yet have it, but I recently switched back yesterday, and I had the new sign-in flow, and it's nice. It really is. It's slick. I will say that if you have a separate passphrase for your Chrome sync, you do still have to type in your password to unlock that separately, which I do just for the extra protection. So, but other than that, it's breezy. I love it.
All right, cool. James, did you see those articles come out?
Yeah, it looks nice. My problem isn't signing in to things and having to type my password. I've gotten pretty good at typing my password. My problem is when I want to sign into an account that's not on my phone and I don't want to add it as an account on my phone. I tried to log into my boss's Gmail today, just in my browser, and it added his account to my phone, and I started getting weird Hangout messages from people that he's friends with, so that was kind of annoying. I would like to see them possibly make that a little easier. If I go to just gmail.com, sign out, sign back in on another account without it adding an account to my phone, that would be neat. But as far as switching between your own accounts, this looks like it's going to be really nice because I do have about 3 different accounts, 1 Gmail and 2 Google Apps accounts, that it will be nice to be able to seamlessly switch from one to the other in all apps, whether I'm using the app or in the browser.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but I'm really excited to see what that looks like. So I'm excited. Finally. All right. Happy birthday, Chromecast. Woohoo! Chromecast does turn 1. And what's really cool about this is some of the added benefits that came out with this is the 3 months of the Music All Access free. Now, James, you know that I'm not a big fan of the music, right? I have a few songs that my girls have downloaded. I swear they downloaded all of them, even all the Katy Perry's and the Frozen stuff. I swear, they're the ones that downloaded that. um, but I know that you've hit the all access, right? You've had it before.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out that right now, because of the 1 year anniversary of Chromecast, you could actually reach into the Chromecast sphere of awesomeness if you've purchased a Chromecast before September of this year. Basically, if you own one, you can actually go in and pull and redeem 3 months free of the Play Music All Access.
Even if you already have it?
No. if you Greg's just
I'm
shaking his
out.
head. No. Exactly. Again, this is on OMG Chrome, and they have Joey's got another really great write-up here, and he talks about how you can go out and grab it. And basically, if you just go to the I think there's he's got a link, but basically, if you have it, you just have to go redeem that promo code by clicking on the on-screen prompts. So it's pretty straightforward. But if you do already have it, you're not going to get an extra 3 months free, or I think even if you've done the 1 month free, I think Joey says that in there. If you haven't redeemed, not previously subscribed. So if you've done the 1 month free, you've previously subscribed. So I'm sure that you're out of it. But to be honest, a real quick roundup. I mean, this is it's a free 3 months. James, what do you think of the All Access? Is it something that you really use every day?
I use it all the time. I've heard that people still use these things called CDs to listen to music. I'm not sure what those are, but they sound archaic. The Google Music it gives me music, all the music I want anytime I want it. I can download stuff, and it stays there. I don't know what their limit is, if there's any kind of limit, but there's music on my phone that I downloaded. I don't even remember when I downloaded it, and it's still there. They don't remove it from your phone after like a few days or something like that. I don't know what their protocol is, but it's just like it's not free because I pay $7.99 a month for it, but it's like free music. Whatever I want to listen to, anytime, I get it. It also has a radio function, which I use quite often. It's not as nice as Pandora. With Pandora, you can really craft a nice radio playlist. Besides thumbs upping and thumbs downing stuff, you can add kind of combined playlists together. With Google Music, you can't do that yet, but it's good enough. I don't find myself ever using Pandora anymore. I used to use Spotify Pandora combination. Now I just use Google for everything. Cast it all the time to my Chromecast so I can listen to it with my home stereo system. And I read recently these already existed, but somebody is putting out a little device that you can use to connect your Chromecast directly to your speakers, so you can listen to things like Google Music without having to turn your TV on. It'll just cast directly to your speakers, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, I highly recommend Google Music. I was a huge advocate for Spotify, and I swear to you, I got at least 10 people to sign up for it, and then I ditched them all and went to Google Music, and haven't looked back since.
Well, there you go. So I think it's a huge bonus. I mean, you're talking about the fact that you use it on the Chromecast, and you're right about that little device that came out. This is just someone, I think, engineering one unit that does everything. I think there was a couple ways to get that done by buying a few components, and you're right about that. Craig, I know that you get into a little bit of the podcast too, so I know you're not all music all the time, right? But you also do the play musical access as well. So are you listening to music all the time on this thing, or are you just is this something that you definitely are yeah, I bought it and I love it and I use it every day of the week?
I use it daily, whether it's commuting or today I was out mowing grass, so I had my headphones in. For podcasts, I use a separate app called Pocket Casts, which, because it was designed for podcasts, it does a fantastic job of podcast management. It syncs your playback across your devices, so if you stop listening at the 2-minute mark on one device, you can pick up a 2-minute mark on another. I think for All Access, James really hit it on the head. The only horrible thing about it's the name. I mean, the functionality's there, the library's there, the app is slick. I My favorite part of the app isn't just that you can save music offline, it's that you can save entire playlists offline. So I've got a couple playlists that I like to keep handy, and when when you hit save on, I think it's download now, it used to be pin, on your various devices, when you add a new song to that playlist from a different device, it still goes ahead and keeps it in sync. I love that, and then when I wipe my device, for example, yesterday, when I went from Android L back to 4.4 stable, it automatically started re-downloading all of my music. And it was a couple gigabytes worth. So if you were going to try to do that manually by hand, individual tracks, you'd be up all night doing it. So I love that it just does that in the background, and I don't even have to worry about it. So it's worth the money I pay for it.
There you go. So
One
I
thing,
guess
if Google's listening, they need to put the year the album was released on the main page. I shouldn't have to open an album to see when it was released. Not a big deal, but hey, Eric Schmidt, if you're listening.
well, I think for the trivia buffs out there, and they're like, oh yeah, when did that come out? Or if you just want to feel old, like seriously, last time I was listening to a song and I was like, hey, I remember that, and then I was like 11. Oh my goodness, that was literally like 24 years ago or whatever. I was like, that's crazy. I feel old now. Thank you, Wikipedia, telling me when that song came out. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, James. To be honest, I don't know. All right, so that's pretty cool. Now another thing about the Chromecast, and we have a couple of Chromecast things in here because it's their first birthday. You gotta be able to celebrate a little bit. This was an interesting thing because this reminded me of some of the things that the Radio Shacks and the AT&T stores and the other things have done. The Republic Wireless is actually doing a thing where if you buy a Moto X, you're going to get yourself a free Chromecast. Now, with the expense of a Chromecast, which are pretty inexpensive now, I mean, $35 retail, we've seen them as low, I think it's $25 on sale at some times. You know, this was an easy win for for Republic Wireless because it's very inexpensive to give away. As long as you're making the money back on the sale of the Moto Wireless, and then you have the contract that you're linking them into, you're making money. So I think this is like, to me, like one of the coolest giveaways that I've seen with a purchase of a phone. James, have you ever seen something like this, or have you ever taken part in like one of these?
Probably. I don't keep a Excel spreadsheet with all of the sweet deals I've gotten over my life, but I'm sure that I have gotten a deal like that. I think it's awesome. You know, I've seen other deals like that for a while. If you bought an Apple computer, they gave you a free iPod, which was a pretty cool deal. It was like you buy a computer that costs like $4 million and you get a $200 iPod. So it was like, hey, that's cool. But this is really cool. It's going to get the Chromecast out to even more people. The Moto X is a fantastic phone. I tried it for like a week, and it was really, really hard to send it back to Motorola.
Got one.
I know you have one. It's a fantastic phone, and getting a free Chromecast with it, heck yeah.
Yeah. So Craig, I know that you double checked your drive. Did you find your sweet deals Excel spreadsheet, or I should say sheets, where you might have taken advantage of these and marked it down?
No. Honestly, well, like James was saying, you buy a multi-$1,000 laptop and you get a free toy. You're buying a $600.
Did he go out or did we go out?
I'm still here. I think we lost Craig.
Oh dear. Well, I think I know where he was going, but I'll wait for him to come back to complete his thought. So that is an interesting. I think that I think his point was that you're kind of getting your bang for your buck. But I think that I don't know. I'm going to argue with him even though he hasn't made his point. I'm going to say that the Chromecast is so inexpensive that I'm betting that Republic Wireless has taken this one on the chin. They didn't even have to reach out to Google to do this for them, right? I really don't. I think this is all them. Whereas the other ones might have been, the overhead that you have, and maybe even Apple helping out. So anyway, so we'll wait for Craig to come back here, but we'll keep on with the news. And the news, James, is these Hexa models. First of all, I don't know what it is, but I love the name Hexa. I'm cheap like that. The marketing gets to me. The Hexa brand name is just cool, man. These laptops are popping out. They're on Amazon now. Touchscreen model coming soon. We've got Dinson over at chromestory.com. He's got this great little write-up about it. And then he mentions even that, really who really reached out to find out about this touchscreen thing and broke the news is actually Brent Sullivan, of course, another great guy out of the Google Plus Chromebooks community. He reached out. This is it's your basic stuff. It does have the Bay Trail, right? So we're talking Bay Trail. We're talking 4 gigs of RAM, the standard resolution screen, all that good stuff, HD graphics from Intel. So basically what we have is we have a Bay Trail with 4 gigs of RAM. So, I mean, we have to look at, I know that, they all look the same, but I'm really interested in this. Craig, James, have you had a chance just to check out the pics on this?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that model. It has 4 gigabytes of RAM, which means it's a Chromebook I would consider buying. And it also has the Bay Trail, which I'm really excited about. I just so badly want to know if they're better than ARM. That's all I care about. Are the Bay Trails better than ARM, so I can make fun of ARM some more? That's all that really matters to me. But even if it's not, I mean, it has to be at least as good as ARM. And if it is, it's fanless. So it's a really good little Intel competition for ARM. But I'm super excited about this model. I don't like the name. When I first saw it, I was like, I thought somebody put Chrome OS on a banana pie or something. Wasn't really sure what was going on, but there's not a Raspberry or banana pie in this thing. It is just like any other Chromebook. But I'm excited. I would like to get my hands on one. 4 gigabytes of RAM, Bay Trail. That's the model that I want to compare to my 4 gigabyte Haswell and my 2 gigabyte Haswell. I really would like to compare those 3 models.
See, I'm with you. The benchmarks so far that we've seen that came out early show that it's right. It's just a hair above the ARM chips. So I'm more interested. I'm telling you, the marketing gets to me. Hexa. I don't know. That name just sounds so darn cool. Craig, have you taken a look at these?
Yes, I have, and you'll have to tell me if this is the correct microphone setting or not.
You're good, man. You sound
Perfect.
silky smooth, my friend.
Perfect. I've seen these devices. I'm not sure why they're just being released on the open market now. I know they've been used in education settings for a while. So I'm a little bit curious as to why now. But either way, I'm looking forward to it. They seem like pretty well-built devices. And frankly, the more devices available to choose from, the better for everybody.
That's what I'm talking about. And let's get away from Whoa. Let's not get away from the big manufacturers like Acer, Asus, Dell. But you know what? It's one of those things where you're like, what is anyone going to be allowed to break the market? Because if you have the large manufacturers coming in and they're just the only ones out there, it's kind of cool to see like this little guy, this little Hexa. Hexa. I just love the name. I'm telling you, I am such a. Anyway, I'm a marketing guy. I get sucked in. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Now, before we started the show, we actually were talking about the HP Chromebox, and I actually got a chance to see one of these, and I was really kind of excited because it was really. First of all, it's heavy, but it's really light, or not light. It's really small, and these Chromeboxes are really cool. But what they've done is they've actually come out with a package. HP's come out with a package with the monitor, wireless keyboard, and mouse, all for around $340, or $339.97. Come on, really? Just say $400, or say $340. But they've basically created a Chrome base without it being installed inside the monitor itself. So you basically have some extra wires, some extra stuff going on, but you basically have a Chrome base. But with HP, you're getting each individual piece separately. What I like about it is, and when I first saw it, and people were talking, it's cheaper than the Chrome base by like a hair, and you're getting just some individual pieces. I think that the Chrome base, my first take on this was that the Chrome base still has some some better stuff to it. I think with it being installed inside, I kind of liked it a little bit better. I don't know, James. What are your thoughts on the fact that HP is coming out of the gate and basically trying to be like, well, this is the package deal?
I think it's cool. I'm totally blanking out here, but on what it's called. But if the monitor that it comes with, and I'm assuming it probably does, has those mounting brackets on the back that have, you know what I mean? There's like a name for it, special kind of brackets on the back of monitors that you can. I think it's, I don't know.
Are you talking about for wall mounting, or are you talking about for mounting hardware on the back?
For mounting hardware, I believe, because there are monitors out there that right now, the HP and Asus Chromebooks, you can mount to the back of a monitor. Whatever those mounts are called, if this monitor has it, you can basically have a Chrome base. I mean, like you said, the Chromebooks is small, so if you mount that sucker behind your monitor, then you pretty much have yourself a Chrome base. The Chromebox is out of the way, you won't even see it, but you have the ability, if you need to remove it and take it somewhere else. So I honestly think that this, doing something like, I mean, the Chrome base looks cool. It's nice, kind of like when the iMac first came out, everything was all built in one. And I think they have a place for kiosks and stuff. But honestly, I think this, if the price is the same, would be better than a Chrome base type option, just because you have the option to remove the box and go connect it to a different monitor if you need to. So I think this is cool. It's probably worth noting that the normal price for this bundle is $400, but right now, if you buy it from HP, it's like $320 or $330 or whatever, $340, which I think is probably because that's what a Chrome base costs. So coming out the gate, they're competing with the Chrome base, but you better buy them quick, because at some point they're going to be $400 to buy this bundle.
And I would have to agree. I would say it's roughly in how I am about like size comparisons. Yeah, it's roughly the size of your Chromecast box. Because I got a chance to hold one the other day at Best Buy, and they're roughly the same size. I mean, like, it's a little bit thicker, and it's heavy. It's a dense little product, the HP Chromebox. Craig, I think what James was kind of talking about, and I think this is something that I like the Chrome base because it has some of that extra functionality where you can plug in something else and then just switch out. But I think James makes the point that if like your monitor goes out, you're not also losing the computer that kind of went that was attached to the back. You don't have to get if you have an extra monitor laying around, you can just plug that in and keep rolling. What are your thoughts on the fact that like this is it reminds me of the e-machines, you know what I mean? Like you get the whole box with everything in it. I don't mean to compare Chrome boxes to e-machines, by the way. For all those a bit of possibly might have had a negative experience with an e-machine. But Craig, what are your thoughts on this Chrome base?
Well, to begin, James, you were looking for Visa mount. That's what it's called. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Visa.
You're welcome.
It's everywhere you want to be.
Exactly. To answer your question, John, I think these are targeted at different markets. I think the all-in-one really appeals to certain market segments like libraries, school labs, maybe some business kiosks, whereas the HP Chromebox is going to be the type of thing that you walk into a store like a Best Buy and you say, I want that computer over there. What else do I need to buy? And then the very kind and helpful sales rep will say, nothing. It includes the keyboard, the mouse, the Chrome box, and the monitor. You're good to go. You just need to carry one box home with you. And like you were saying, John, that used to kind of be commonplace to some extent. I can remember my parents buying a couple computers that way. They weren't e-machines, but they were maybe Gateway, I want to say. And maybe a Compact throughout the years too. But yeah, they came with monitors, and that's when you replaced your monitor, was when you bought a whole new computer, because it came with it. I mean, my parents are still running a monitor that they got, let's see, when they bought a Compact that ran Vista, and it was an early Vista build, and it's still chugging along, even though they now have a new tower. And if I switched them to a Chromebox, they would probably still use the same monitor. But it's not, for the average consumer, you don't think about buying a new computer monitor. You think about buying a new computer, because, I hate to say it, but for a lot of people, the screen is the computer. They don't really recognize that the tower is a separate unit. And if you don't believe me, go find someone that works help desk, and they will tell you that I am not wrong.
I believe you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
right.
you. So
Okay.
I like the idea, like James was saying, I like the idea of having the monitor separate for me, because if something goes bad, I'm savvy enough to replace the component that's bad. But I can see the Chrome base really working well for computer labs, places where the fewer moving parts, the fewer parts that can walk away, the better. So I think it's a good idea from HP. It sets them apart from Samsung with their Chromebox and Asus with theirs. Hopefully it'll just set them apart just enough. Although I will say that the reason why I disappeared earlier, my Samsung Chromebox crashed. So
Whoopsie doo.
I'm probably due for an upgrade. I should consider this bundle.
You should. I agree. I'm with you. Now the last news article that I have is actually a Linux article, and I just tacked this on today just because I just wanted to highlight people that might say, you're talking about Crouton, you're talking about Linux, you're talking about things that I don't get. What is Linux? What's a distribution? If you go to our links page, if you go to practicalchrome.com and check out this show page, right, episode 31, you're going to see this link, and this link's going to talk about what the article is about. Is a company that's taking old hardware, recycled hardware, and it's loading Linux distributions onto the hardware, and those distributions include Ubuntu, which is what the primary one that I used during my Crouton challenge, as well as Mint, which is another distribution, as well as also SUSE Linux. So these are just the different flavors of Linux, right, that are available. And what Linux is a full desktop environment, which means that I don't mean to classify it with Windows, but you kind of have to, because that's what everyone knows. And what Linux is an operating system that is fully featured, if not more featured than, or more, not more featured. I guess that's not the right terminology, but my point is that it's just as robust as Windows versus Chrome OS, which has a very tight security layer and uses web technologies to provide you with the applications that you would need to be just as productive on a large full-blown operating system, or a fully featured with all the libraries for all the different languages. But it's free, 100% free, built by open source communities working together, people just wanting to build something and build it well. That's what open source is. That's what Linux is. All the applications you find on Linux, most of them, are all open source. This article goes about talking about these gentlemen this company, this nonprofit that's actually, and this gentleman that started it, where he's taking old hardware, and it's very difficult to get a Windows license for free, right? It's almost impossible. But if you load Linux on it, it's 100% free. There's no questions asked. You just load Linux on the machine, and anyone can use it. You're not registering with a company. You're not, it just works. So this person's able to go out, this nonprofit is able to go out, rebuild old machines that still have a good amount of juice left to them, throw Linux on them, and then give them away to people that need computers, and they'll have everything in the computer. They don't have to, as much as, companies like Google, even Microsoft, do their best to donate things to schools and donate, to charitable organizations. This guy can take old hardware from you and me, throw an operating system on it, and there was no cost anywhere, and they can just use it. So that's what this is, just an article about Linux. I just want to give everyone the opportunity to see, first of all, the Linux Journal, which is a great site with a lot of Linux information. And so it's just a great article about these people rebuilding old computers and giving them to people that need computers, and it's just pretty cool. So that's what Linux is, right? It's a free open source operating system that's just as robust as Windows, but it's 100% free, and you can test as many or any distribution you want at any time. Good stuff? Craig, good stuff?
Good stuff, because Google Drive actually gets a shout out in midway down the article. So do Chromebooks. Chromebooks are in the article. Read the article.
Right, exactly. They are. My point was actually not to constantly hammer home the whole, because I'm all about, it's practical Chrome, but we're also about forward thinking, and Google's into open source, and so it's good stuff. But anyways, James, good stuff. What do you think? James?
Sure.
Sure, he says. That's because we're about to find out what his experience was with Crouton. So let's kind of get started. But first, of course, we do have to thank again our next sponsor. Now, our next sponsor for the show is Coinbase, right? Now, what is Coinbase? Coinbase is Bitcoin safe and easy. Now, did you know that more and more companies are accepting them? Now, I mean, like we're talking like big companies like Google and 1-800-Flowers and Dell and Alienware, which is a subsidiary of Dell, but we're not going to get into that. But they're now accepting Bitcoin in their transactions, so you can purchase items with Bitcoin. So the question becomes, like, if you're getting offers to people to buy things from you in Bitcoin, where are you going to go? So now with that popularity growing and growing and growing, the question is where can I turn to? And Coinbase is one of those the gateways that you can go to, right? And because it's an easy and worry-free source for Bitcoin and Bitcoin transactions, that's kind of like their big thing. That's what they do. Now, they allow you to send Bitcoins to others, buy new Bitcoin in US dollars, and also exchange Bitcoin back out into US dollars. Now, and of course, if you're concerned about getting into the Bitcoin as a currency, then they're actually a great place to just start off, right? They're the strongest security out there. Well, I can't say the strongest, but they have some of the strongest security out there. It's actually stronger than most banks, and they also make Bitcoin incredibly easy and safe, and they're just a really good company. You got to check them out, and you have to check them out through our link. What this link will do is that if you go to the link, which is bitcoin.practicalchrome.com or coinbase.practicalchrome.com, what you'll do is you're going to end up on our referral network. And what will happen is that once you sign up, you'll see us, and we'll see you in the referral network. And once you actually exchange $100 worth of Bitcoin or use $100 worth of Bitcoin in transactions, you'll actually receive $5 free in Bitcoin in your account. So that's why using that link is actually really important. So to support the show, definitely check out bitcoin.practicalchrome.com or coinbase.practicalchrome.com and visit Coinbase and set yourself up. Buy some Bitcoin, receive some Bitcoin from somebody that you want to receive it from, who wants to pay you, because you'll get an account immediately. You'll get a Bitcoin address as soon as you actually join Coinbase. So that's going to be your easiest way to get one. You won't have to worry about, there won't be any questions. There will be no more lingering questions about how to accept Bitcoin. As soon as you become a Coinbase member, you're going to start to be able to receive coins, right? So definitely check them out. Again, bitcoin.practicalchrome.com or coinbase.practicalchrome.com. And if you go there, they'll know that we sent you. And we appreciate you going over there for us. All right, guys. So the big challenge, the big challenge, and that big challenge was using Crouton or Kubuntu, or the option where you just go back all the way down into the Linux-ness of Chrome OS. And then, of course, there's Craig's fourth option, which is just the U-boot option. And I say just because I'm not a big fan of that one, to be honest. I'm not, because it's using another Linux distribution on your Chromebook. It is. It's kind of cheating, though, because we're into like the whole it's kind of cheating. I'm just saying. But Craig actually did end up doing the Crouton challenge with us. He joined us in the Crouton challenge. What I'd like to do, I want to turn it over to, let's go with Craig first. You guys know my experience, well, you guys, not everybody who's listening knows my experience, but I'll go over my experience later. And Craig, why don't you start us off with your, first of all, by the way, before we start, we had a lot of comments on this episode, a lot. Like, it generated a huge amount of information, a huge amount of people talking about how they use Crouton or how they don't use Crouton, or what difficulties they have with Crouton. And then the whole thing about, do you stay vanilla on your Chromebook or Chromebox or not? Do you sideload or not? So there was a lot of discussion around this one, and I really want to thank all the viewers for all their feedback. I know that Craig and I and James and I had a lot of feedback in regard to a number of episodes, but this one was one of the bigger ones. So I just want to thank you real quick for that. and then I'll send it to Craig. Craig, what was your experience? Where what you did was you have Chrome OS, and just to explain to people who haven't listened to the prior episode, you're taking Chrome OS in its vanilla form, and it doesn't matter what channel you were on. Let's say you're on stable, and you can go out there and you can actually load another operating system next to your Chrome OS instance. And if we're talking with Crouton, you're actually just hitting a few keystrokes, and boom, you have that Linux desktop I was just talking about earlier in the news, where you're in this full-blown operating system with the C libraries, Java, you can run Java, all the stuff like that. So how was your experience this time around?
Well, I would say the biggest surprise of my experience was the feedback we got from last week's episode. So I would like to start by clarifying that and apologizing to listeners that were a little frustrated with my stance on the topic. Basically, last week I claimed that Linux was not for the average user, but I may have worded it a little poorly. That is my opinion. Linux is not for the average user. There are plenty of people that will benefit greatly from running Linux, whether with Crouton or just USB stick or Crew Ubuntu. But the average user, I still, even after this experience, do not believe that it's the catch-all solution to the user that wants to run Skype on their Chromebook. I just don't think it's the answer for that question today. I have nothing against Linux. I love Linux. The only reason I don't have a Linux box on my desk right now is because I have a Chromebook instead, and it has a Linux kernel, so we're good. But yeah, I love Linux. I have nothing against Linux, except for when it comes to the average user. Just because the interface, and as James will explain, a lot of the other parts of it just are not user-friendly enough yet. And I'm not saying it can't be that, because Chrome OS is proof that Linux can be anything you need it to be. But it takes a very talented organization and talented people spending hundreds of hours to craft a good user experience on top of the Linux kernel. And I think we've seen that with Chrome OS, but I don't think you necessarily see that with the other distributions, which are aimed at different audiences. So that's my opinion on it. And now, before John gets mad at me, I will launch into my actual experience. I decided to load Debian with Wheezy and XFCE as the window manager. I've used this configuration before, so there weren't any surprises there. The experience, as far as that went, of loading Crouton was flipping the physical switch on my Samsung Series 550 Chromebook, enabling developer mode, running a couple command lines in Crush, and it loaded up all the packages. That took a while. We're talking a couple hours. So your mileage may vary, but it did take a while for me, and I'm on a fairly quick connection. Be prepared to have a charger handy, especially if you have an older Chromebook that doesn't get 10 hours. But yeah, once it loaded, it was easy to switch between them. I didn't notice a lot of issues like Debian affecting Chrome OS or the other way. I know John may have run into some issues there. But they were pretty isolated for me. I didn't use it heavily. I played around with it for a couple hours and then came back to it one of the other days. But as far as getting around Linux, that's an experience I'll let James kind of talk about. But in general, if you're familiar with Linux, if you've run Linux before, if you know what you're doing, you won't have any trouble with this. If you can read directions, you won't have trouble getting it started. But if you don't have any experience with Linux before, be prepared to read a lot of instructions. If you're curious, I would say definitely do it, but understand what you're getting yourself into first. Maybe do some research beforehand rather than just research after the fact. Or if you're the type of geek that I was, then you're probably like 13, 14, and you're just going to do it anyway, and you're going to learn as you do it, and that's perfectly fine too. That's part of the fun. But, just be cautious with it. It's powerful. It can be used for good or evil. But yeah, just be careful. Know what you're getting into. That's really my parting advice and my experience on the topic. Just know what you're getting into.
There you go. Now, James, I know that you've had you've done this before. First of all, let's say that, and you don't like Linux. Right? Is that easy to say, or would you say let's get your review of your crouton challenge after your trial there?
Linux is kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest. And coming from a guy who's used Windows his whole life and has switched to Chrome OS a little over a year ago, I like to go to a website, click a button that says, click here to install this, and I click it, and it's installed. You don't have that with Linux. At least I haven't found anything that works like that. With Linux, even though there's a user interface, you're looking at a screen and there's a few icons. Pretty much everything you do involves a command prompt. It seems like, anyways, which is kind of annoying. Installing Linux was super easy. Like Craig said, if you can read, you can get Linux on your Chromebook. Once you get into Linux, however, even the experienced reader will not be able to figure things out right away. It is very much different from Windows. I don't remember what distribution I'm using right now because I tried 3 different combinations. I tried to use Cinnamon, but it wouldn't let me for some reason. Saucy, DB. I don't even know what these words mean, but I tried 3 different combinations, and all I know right now is that I'm using something called XFCE4. I only know that because to get into it, I have to type start XFCE4, and then type in a password, and that takes me into Linux. So the only reason I would consider using Linux on my Chromebook would be if I wanted to print without using Cloud Print, if I wanted to just directly print to my printer, no internet required, and also transferring files from my phone to my computer. I've been unsuccessful in figuring out both of those things in Linux so far. So basically, my Linux distro is just Chrome OS that does far less right now, just because I don't know how to use it. So I strongly agree with what Craig said. I am the epitome of average user. I know a little bit and I can break stuff, but for the most part, I'm just an average user who opens up his Chromebook and uses things. I don't go into developer mode. I went into beta mode and I wiped a little sweat from my brow. It was a little scary going into beta, but I'm there and I'm happy. So going into Linux, I'm going to have to learn a lot more before Linux becomes useful for me. If you're already familiar with Linux, there's a lot of benefits you can get. A couple of things we've already mentioned: the ability to print without using Google Cloud Print. If that's something you need for whatever reason, you could do things to your phone, transfer files. You could root your phone with the Linux distro, something we can't do with the Chromebook right now. So there are advantages, but you really are going to need to be familiar with Linux or be willing to put a lot of time into becoming familiar with Linux. It is not the answer to anything, really. Hey, how do I do X on my Chromebook? The answer is never going to be install Linux, unless the question is, how do I frustrate myself a lot with my Chromebook? Then the answer is install Linux. But there's a big learning curve. Every time somebody wants to do something like do Skype or use, I don't know if there's an iTunes on Linux, probably not. Minecraft, that's the thing. When people want to do this and people's answer is simply just put crouton on it, that's the stupidest answer ever, and you are doing that person a huge disservice. You're giving them false hope. They're thinking, oh, there's this thing I can just install on my Chromebook and then I'll be able to use Skype. Why didn't Google just include that on the Chromebook in the first place? Why doesn't every Chromebook just have crouton on it? Because it's a pain in the ass, that's why. So stop telling people that. Please. I'm done.
See, now, I totally agree with you, James. You can't. The reason that when I got into the when I got into Crouton, right? So I had to do it twice, 2 times. Okay, I had to, because basically what happened was there's a script that you run. Let me back up. Back that thing up. So you have to put the machine in developer mode, which means that you get a full shell. which means that you get full Linux shell commands available to you, at least the most common commands that are available in Linux. But I think it's also called like the GNU toolkit or something like that. Like it's the basic tools that come with Linux. So you get this shell, and if you know Linux in the shell, then you can actually like just type away things, do things like delete files, copy files, FTP something using the command line if you're so inclined. But then what you do is you download an SH script, which is just a shell script, which is basically, if you've ever seen the command line on Windows, imagine typing a bunch of stuff out into like a big program and then just hitting a button and you're launching that script that you wrote. It's kind of like what's happening, right? So you run this shell script, and what it does is it creates another environment that sits next to your Chrome environment, and it's allowed to do that because you're in developer mode. So it creates this, and then you change the root of the machine over to this side, and you start using this side of the machine to do your work. And because you're using a full Linux distribution or a full Linux environment, you can then put what the other distributions, because remember Chrome OS is a distribution, you just put the other layers of those distributions on top of the Linux kernel of Chrome OS, and now you are using Linux distribution called Ubuntu, or using Debian, which is what Craig was using. The Saucy and the Trusty are actually names for the Ubuntu versions, right, that are out there. They give them these funny names. There was one from Fedora that was hilarious. I can't remember what it was called, but it was called like, something like the beef ring or something like that. And you're like, what? Anyway, so what you're doing is that you're getting into this chroot environment. So I jacked it up. I did. And the solution when you jack it up, when I researched it, which was Crouton they use GitHub, which is just an open source way of sharing your code and having people just pull it down and tweak it as they want. They have another like issue tracking log area, and someone had said, hey, what do I do if I jack it up? And it was the remove command with the F flag. So now we're talking command line stuff, and that means that basically it's going to force a removal, which means it's going to delete stuff without asking you. It's just going to delete stuff. And it also used like the star dot star like thing, and I'm like, whoa, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. I have the time. I'm just going to hit the buttons to reload Chrome OS, because like when you go into dev mode, you have the option of just hitting spacebar when you boot up your machine, and it just like loads Chrome OS back onto the partition and wipes everything and puts everything back to normal. So you're done. And then I just went back and did the steps again, which is getting back into developer mode, which on my Acer is a few keystrokes when you first boot up, and then you're in, you're then going to reboot into dev mode. So all that being said, I jacked it up and I had to start over, which was frustrating, but also I'm like, not a big deal. And what I had to do, and this is where Craig and James are right, there's a lot of reading involved. I know how to use Linux, but trying to get this to work properly on a machine that I still have a warranty on and things like that, I'm like, I don't want to screw this up. And also, I also didn't take the safe road, and I did not burn an image. so if I'd really messed it up, I didn't even have an image of Chrome available. I would have had to do some shenanigans on my Windows machine and then burn the image to a USB drive and then go back to Chrome. It would have been a whole hassle if I just backed it up using Image Burner, it would have been fine. That being said, once I was done, and I used a couple different sites, and I'm going to have links in the show notes, of how to get mine set up, and I had to change the person's scripts that he wrote them all out, and it was less than like 4 months ago or whatever. He wrote them out how he did it, and that's how I jack stuff up. So I had to change it. I don't know whether that's because Crouton changed or what, but I had to change it to get it to work the way that I wanted it to work. I still had some issues inside of Linux. I love Linux, right? But some of the issues I had, some of my notes were that the battery drain when you're inside Linux using this functionality was a lot more. It was about 2/3 more, I would say, or maybe half the battery life of using just Chrome OS. The software center inside of Ubuntu couldn't make it work exactly the way I wanted it to, so I always just used the command line to get applications, which is considerably more difficult because their software center is just basically like the Play Store. You have ratings, reviews, you can read what people say, and you hit a button to install it, and it's done. right? That's awesome if it worked. So I know there was a way for me to get it to work, but I just started using the apt command and started pulling things down. James, I know you had an issue with the passwords. So did I. I used one password at one point when it asked me a password, and another time I used another one, and I had password issues. So every once in a while something will pop up and I'll be like, this password, and I just haven't thought. It's like there's a reason for this, but I just never got it. So the other thing was there was two other things, and they had to do with the touchpad, and that was this is just basic issues, right? If any of you, for work, I use a Lenovo, and when I was working on the help desk at my company, we used to get the call all the time that someone would be typing or using their laptop, and their thumb or their palm would hit the touchpad, and boom, they're now on a new paragraph, typing in the sentence that they were typing in, and it would be so frustrating. So they'd have us turn off the trackpad altogether. I've noticed it in Chrome OS. I don't know whether Google did something like if you're typing a key, then they turn off the trackpad for like a hot 2 seconds or something like that, or turn down the sensitivity to nothing for like a hot second while you're typing. But I've never had a problem with typing on a Chromebook and having the touchpad be so sensitive that it jacks up what I'm typing. Craig, have you ever seen that before?
I've never experienced it myself on any of my laptops, but I know plenty of people that experience it on every laptop they own.
Exactly. James, have you ever seen that before? Dude, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I see it. It happens to me on my Chromebooks, Acer and HP. My Linux tap to click doesn't work in my Crouton, and when I come back to Chrome OS, it still doesn't work. I have to go into settings, toggle it off, and toggle it back on.
Exactly. My Aussie scrolling was set up too, which I don't get that whole. I think call it Aussie. Really, does Australia? I realize that they're on a different, and they're in the southern hemisphere, and their toilets might go swirling the wrong way. But that doesn't mean that they scroll up and down using the different gestures. Seriously, that's okay. The wrong side of the street. My brother lives there, but I'm still gonna bust in Australia. Are you telling me that you all scroll differently? Really, Australia? Anyway.
No, John, it's a joke because Australia is upside down.
Is that what it is? Okay.
It's just a joke. It's just
I apologize to all of Australia then. Their water does go down a different way, and they have 2 buttons on the toilet. One for number 2, one for number 1. It's a way to conserve water. Anyway, the problem that I had with Linux was that it's not for the average user. So when we see it in the forums, I love Linux. I use Linux. I will go 6 months without using it, and then come home and I'll be like, I need to use my Linux machine for this or that or the other, and then I'll stick with it for a while. So I know Linux pretty well, but it is not for the average user. And I realized we had a couple comments that were like, why are you calling this a challenge? You had to press 3 buttons on your laptop, it rebooted, it took about 15 minutes to go into dev mode, and that you didn't even do anything, and then you downloaded something and fired a command, and then fired a second command, and you were inside your system. How's that challenging? He's absolutely right. But what about when you get inside? For someone who doesn't know what they're doing, that might be difficult. If I would again not give it to certain people, I would not say buy a Chromebook and do ABC. It's terrible that I want them to go down the road of buying a Mac or a Windows machine and be stuck in that same repetitive thing where they're buying another machine every so often and have to pay the license for the operating system. But some of them are not willing to make that choice, or they don't have time. It could be a mother of 3 or a guy that works 70 hours a week, and he just doesn't have it at home to be able to spend 4 hours and read forums and read wikis and read stuff to figure out how Linux works. And I might not have the time to sit with them, so that's where it becomes difficult. I really want people to use Chrome OS, and if they're a Linux user, I will definitely be like, holy cow! If you want Linux, definitely check out Crouton. It's so easy to do. It's crazy. Check it out. I'm going to roll Crouton for probably a little bit of time because, as many of you know, I roll Practical Chrome on the Chromebook. We broadcast from it, but I have to go to a Windows machine for a lot of my workflow. My original images were in Photoshop, and I haven't taken the time to figure out how to get them into not Photoshop. I'm sorry, GIMP. They're on GIMP. They're on GIMP, and I haven't done any research to figure out how I could transfer them to like Pixlr or some other web-based app. But they're like some of my stock images that I like changed just a few things, that I can paste them and they're done. So why not just go upstairs on my Windows machine and do that? Using VLC, which is another application that I use, I can't use it on Chromebook. So my workflow is now 100% available to me on the Chromebook by using Crouton. So maybe after some time I'll do the challenge of dropping my Crouton, or maybe I'll just let go of Crouton because, like some of the people have had happen, someone at work said this, and then someone, one of our viewers commented on this, that they turned on their son's Chromebook and hit spacebar because they saw the warning and were like, "What? Spacebar?" Well, they wiped out their Minecraft, they wiped out their son's stuff, and they were like, "Oops, oopsie, my bad," right? And there's ways to back this up. So if you research Crouton, there's ways to back this up. Another key fundamental thing that this gentleman mentioned to me was treat even your Linux instance as a cloud instance, and you'll be fine. If you treat your Crouton as a cloud instance, or a like Chrome OS, where everything is pretty much in the cloud and you get it to sync later, you'll be fine. If you start saving data and then accidentally one day you hit spacebar, you're done. You're DONE done. Your Linux instance is completely gone, and you cannot stop it. It's just going to happen, and you have to just sit there and cringe and say, "Oh, why me?" Because it wasn't built to do this, or it wasn't built. It was built to allow this to happen, but it wasn't built for the average user to use this every day. That's why there's a spacebar button, and it gets you back into regular mode. So treat it like a cloud instance was another thing that I was told. There's ways to back it up. There was something else, and of course I can't remember it. But that was kind of my Linux instance, and I'm going to continue this, I think, for a little bit. I am a very vanilla user because I would like to get away from using GIMP, which, again, GIMP is another open source piece of software, which is fantastic. And I love it. My wife uses Inkscape for her work. It's it's another graphic program. It's unbelievable, the open source software that's available out there. So that was my. Any further thoughts, guys? Once we're kind of done doing the roundup, I'm gonna give everybody one more link in regard to Linux assistance. If you're excited about it, I'm going to have a few more links. I'm going to talk about something in a second. But James, final thoughts, really quickly. The last final words on your Crouton challenge.
Don't do it.
All right, that's pretty succinct. Craig?
For anyone out there that might be racking their mind trying to think of what John was trying to say earlier when he was talking about Fedora, the release name he was thinking of is Fedora 17 Beefy Miracle.
Beefy Miracle.
You're welcome. You're welcome, person that's racking their brain trying to figure out what it was.
Exactly. And that was
yeah, as for Crouton, if it's something you're interested in, or you really feel like it's something that you're curious about and you just want to know, go ahead and do it. Just research beforehand and know what you're getting into. If you're an average user and you're not that savvy, stay away. I mean, frankly, that's my advice.
Okay, I'm with you. Don't do it and stay away. That's awesome. And you know why that's awesome? Because if you're listening to this show and you know that certain things like Skype are actually coming to HTML5, so they're going to be available from the Chromebook soon. Minecraft, I'm sure that there's going to be, I don't know when, but I'm sure there's going to be a JavaScript version available at some point, or there's going to be a native client built, building it in C instead of Java. Who knows? Coming down the road. These things are coming to Chrome OS because Chrome OS is awesome. It's a brand new platform. It's talking about building things in HTML5. Firefox OS is the same way. The Firefox OS is 100% built to run just HTML5 applications running the native web technologies like CSS, JavaScript, HTML. So I mean, like, this technology is definitely pushing forward. If you like to tinker, and or you know what you're doing, definitely do it. We talked to a couple of people in the feedback that were like, this is what I do daily with this machine. Another person talked about zip files. If it's a different language than English and you've zipped it, Chrome OS can't open it. I think that's what he said it was, and this is a known issue that's going on with Chrome OS. So he's like, I've got to go into my Linux instance and unzip it, and then I'm able to then, because you have the same downloads folder, so you can just, take care of files inside the system that way. So there's a couple of this is kind of workaround for some of the new things with the fledgling OS. So I'm down with that. But listen, if you like to tinker and you're like, what on earth is Linux? And what's the deal with it being a replacement for Windows? Like, how does that work? And you just want to like find out about it. I have a huge recommendation. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to do a podcast in the first place, and that is this podcast called the Linux Action Show. Check it out. Like, literally the best, in my opinion, and I've listened to a number of different Linux shows, and no offense to the other ones, this is the best one. This guy named Chris Fisher, this other gentleman, Matt Hartley, they host the show. Every week they give you Linux news, and when they talk about Linux, they talk about it in a manner where they're like we are with Chrome OS. They're incredibly happy about what they're talking about. They're excited and they're happy, and they explain things properly. They don't just go over your head with comments. They stop, they explain what they're talking about, things like that. They talk about where they've seen Linux every week, Linux in the news, so that way you kind of get an idea. So if you listen to, honestly, just a couple of episodes, I think that you'll be hooked if Linux is something you want to get into. Again, it's the Linux Action Show. I'll put a link in the show notes, and then it's just a great show. So definitely check it out if you want to get into Linux. That's my wrap up. That not for average users, but if you like to tinker, it is actually pretty straightforward and easy to do. All right, gentlemen, what's next up on the agenda? You know what we have is we have the login section, and that is where we picked a couple of apps. The only app that I actually had listed, I think I had two. One was the those are from last week. That's awesome, John. Look at that. I have the show notes up behind me, and I have the old ones. But James had Hover Reader, which is pretty cool. Where you if you hover over a link, it'll actually show you it'll give you the text inside the. Is that right, James?
Yes. Sometimes it does work. It's really cool. A lot of times it doesn't. Haven't figured out the pattern, but there's just links that I'll hover over and nothing happens. But that could be me. I don't know. It's a really cool app because sometimes, particularly in emails, you might get a link and you're like, should I click on that? Where's it actually going to take me? It says this.com, but you could make the text say whatever you want and make it link anywhere else. So this at least gives you a little preview, and it's even scrollable. So you can hover over a link. It'll show you a preview in the middle of the screen, and if you scroll up or down on your touchpad, it'll scroll the preview too, so you can kind of see what's going on a website before you click on it.
Hey, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. I know that, Craig, I stole an app from you. I can't remember what it's called. I have the extension installed, but you guys have seen it work behind me. It's the one where you hover over a picture and it just, boom, sends you the whole big picture. I don't know what that's called. I don't know if Craig knows what it's called either. But the other one that I wanted to mention was, and I don't have it, you can't see it on my computer, but you can see it on behind me, but I do have it on my my Chromebook. And that is that there's a what do you call it? So everything works in a tab, right? But there's a Crosh window app that's available that has you just open the Chrome command line in its own application. So instead of it being in a browser, it's going to be in the application window. I got that because reading that one article that we had last week about using getting Chrome all the way down to the OS. They recommended having this separate app instead of having a browser. So that's pretty cool. So, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Craig, did you have anything you wanted to mention?
The extension's name is Images, and I put a link in the show notes. It's free, and like John said, you hover over an image, a little thumbnail preview, and it enlarges it. It works on most images. You'll maybe once out of every 20 times you'll hit one where it just doesn't work, but it is awesome on Google Plus. I have to say, those profile avatars are so tiny, and you hover over it, and boom, you can see it.
I know.
And then you often, jerk your head back and say, "Oh my goodness," or at least when you're viewing my profile.
I'm with you. See, so like here I've got the Practical Chrome. If I mouse over there it goes. It's all big. See? So like, and if I go down here towards James's profile, it'll show me his face all big there. And if I go to the big one, there it is again. So yeah, I thought it was really cool. I really enjoyed this extension. I think James is a lot like this, where I've seen the images. I haven't done it myself. But something tells me if it's like a redirect link, James, that might become difficult for the application to pull in the data and follow the link all the way through. That might be where it gets kind of
Probably.
So yeah, that's a pretty cool one. So I guess guys, I guess that's it. James, where can people find Mr. Welbus throughout the week?
You can find me on Google Plus, either in the Chromebook community or the Chrome for Business community. And you can also check out Chromebook.reviews, just a good place for a consolidated group of Chromebook reviews. Recently received a facelift thanks to Craig's amazing coding skills, so check that out and see if you can spot the difference, assuming you've seen it before.
Exactly. And now you do have one of those awesome new domains, so it is Chromebook.reviews. No .com after that, just Chromebook.reviews. So
Correct.
check that out. Mr. Tumbleson, where can people find you throughout the week, sir?
Listeners can find me on Google Plus. I use my real name, so just search for Craig Tumbleson, or at chromeup.com, and it's not one of those new fancy domains, so it is chromeup.com.
Look, they're fancy. We had this discussion, okay? How fancy can you get with the fancy domain names? I'm just saying. This is all I'm saying. Look, it's debatable, right? It's debatable. Finally, my name is John Oliphant. You can find me on the Google Pluses under John Oliphant. This is me, and also practicalchrome.com is the website for the podcast. You can definitely check out all the old episodes, all the old videos. We do have a Practical Chrome YouTube channel. We're on iTunes because we're also a podcast. So we have like the MP3s come out where you can hear all that good stuff. Where it's all just sound instead of video too. Another thing is I do want to mention that the pledge drive, we're still going strong. I can actually show you on our Coinbase account that we did get one person who was like, hey, you guys are awesome. It was Craig. I'm gonna spill the beans. It was Craig. But we did get a little bit of cheddar there. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to bump up the this is our pledge drive for new microphones and cameras and stuff like that, so that way we can be a little bit more professional, sound a little bit better. I know that I've got a lot of popping going on mine because it's so close to my face. It's two in my face. Craig, of course, got himself an awesome professional mic and even a pop filter. Super jealous. And then, of course, James always sounds good. But the point is, we're trying to do our pledge drive. Check out the website. If you have some Bitcoin and you want to give us a little bit of support, give us a tip, give us a donation, definitely head over there to the practicalchrome.com website. Just click on some of the newer episodes and you'll see a link towards our Bitcoin address or also the Bitcoin logo on the website, which is over there on the right-hand side. So definitely check that out. Otherwise, that's kind of it for this episode. I thank everybody for watching. Be sure to check us out. We should have our podcast up shortly. And thanks for joining us. And hopefully you get a chance to check out the Crouton and the Bitcoin, both of them. So, gentlemen, I hope you guys have a good rest of the week.
Bye, John.
All right. And by the way, I'll be joining you from a Holiday Inn Express next week. That's right. So I'll be a little bit smarter, maybe. Depends. Maybe. All right, guys. I got nothing. It's like crickets. Ooh, it's like crickets. It's like terrible crickets. I feel like my jokes are just falling off now. You know what I mean? And so I don't have any way to tell whether or not my jokes worked or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's kind of terrible that I can't tell that. And of course, I'm doing my best to try and like click through and like get the sounds up really quickly. So this is me still on air, trying my best to get everything to work and the props to go and get the little crickets. It took so long to get that to happen. So, all right, guys. You guys have a good week.